Yes, loads to discuss this morning. How should our kids be taught in schools? Who pays for the Prime Minister's spectacles? And why does all that stuff matter? We want to know what you think about it all, and you can let us know by using the hashtag BBC Sunday Show on social media. Right then, to Liverpool and to Labour. It's not even 80 days since the party won a landslide victory in the general election, and yet, just look at this. Change the mood or we've no chance at Holyrood, Anna Sarwar has told the Prime Minister, according to the Sunday Times. And recent polling suggests he may have a point. In fact, all the front pages this morning, pretty much all the front pages, will make pretty bleak reading if you're heading to what should have been a great celebration on Merseyside. So how did things get so bad so quickly for Labour? I tell you what, let's ask Ian Murray, the Secretary of State for Scotland, who joins me now from Liverpool. Good morning, Mr Murray.
Good morning, Martin.
So less than 80 days in, how have you managed to get all this so spectacularly wrong?
Well, I think Anna Sarwar was actually correct, and the whole of the Labour Party this week are in the same position. We've laid out how difficult the economic inheritance has been. We knew it was going to be difficult. That's been layered on top of with some of the hidden 22 billion black hole that we've subsequently discovered, and that is gloomy. There's a whole host of things to fix. We know that the country's broken. Our public services are broken. Our economy's broken. We've got an industrial crisis in some of the sectors in Scotland as well that your viewers will be very familiar with in terms of Grangemouth, Mitsubishi, Harland and Wolff, etc. All those things take time to fix, but in order to fix those, we've got to fix the foundations, which are pretty shaky at the moment, and if we don't, we'll have no chance of being able to give that brighter future. And the Prime Minister will set out in his conference speech on Tuesday what that brighter future looks like if we're able to fix the foundations now. OK, I mean, let me suggest to you that rather than change the mood, Anna Sarwar could just as easily be saying change the message, because these things have an impact. They affect the mood of the country, don't they? Would you accept you've got the messaging so far badly wrong? This climate of gloom that you're pitching us all into? Well, it's not a climate of gloom, it's a reality. We've inherited the worst set of economic circumstances in peacetime as an incoming Labour government, and on top of that, that's what we knew about. What we didn't know about was the £22 billion black hole. In addition to that, that's been well documented. It's our responsibility to fix those foundations, otherwise we'll never be able to deliver that change that the country so desperately wants and what they voted for, and that's our job to do. So the economic gloom is a reality in the country at the moment. We've laid that out, and what the Prime Minister will do on Tuesday and what this conference will do this week is set what that brighter path looks like if we're able to fix those foundations now.
You've run small businesses in the past,
the country
Mr
will
Murray.
know nothing works at the moment and things are broken.
You've run small businesses in the past. Given the messaging from central government, would you start a small business now, given what you're hearing?
Well, I have run small businesses in the past, and the important thing that any business person would be able to tell you has either run their own business or are involved in businesses, if you've got tough decisions to make, you have to make them at the start, otherwise your business will not succeed, and that's what this government is trying to do. And if I was in a small business at the moment, there are lots of wonderful opportunities out there to start new businesses in the green sector, which of course GB Energy and this mission of government is putting our full force behind. We want to go for economic growth. That is our #1 policy priority and #1 mission of this UK Labour government. Lots of opportunities. And I would just give you some examples. I was in the Shetland Islands for 2 days this week looking at the wonderful opportunities they're doing up there in renewables, in space, in food and drink. So there's lots of great things out there, and we do have to change that mood. But the economic reality doesn't remove itself just because you change the mood of the country. It's still there and it has to be dealt with. If we do not deal with it, there is no economic future for this country, and there is no way forward in terms of creating that brighter future.
All right, listen, I want to look at your plans for growth and how you plan to implement them in a minute. But firstly, just let me ask you about another issue that's really making headlines this morning. Why should the Prime Minister get free stuff?
Well, it happens all the time in politics, but I think the two things that is really important to lay out here is that everything's transparent. We have very strict rules, so anything that you're given has to be registered. Again, I was in Shetland looking at the Europe's best spaceport at the top of Unst this week, and the guys were very kind to give me a space jacket for going to visit, which is something that will be declared and on the declarations of interest in a timely manner, which is really important.
Why are we only finding out now that the Prime Minister's taken £100,000 worth of, never mind space jackets, but suits and spectacles and boxes at football matches and tickets to see Taylor Swift?
Well, I think it's really important to say, that in terms of the boxes at Arsenal, I think is where it has been, is that it's far more expensive for a leader of the opposition and indeed the Prime Minister to be in the stands at a football match. You're a football fan, Martin, you know what that's like, and it's much easier and this costs nothing to the public purse for him to be. But there's no, if you were in the box, it's much easier for security and means there is no cost to the public purse.
Right.
This is a good value for the public purse in terms of not having all that security. So Keir Starmer has laid that out as a Prime Minister. It's all clear and all transparent, and that's why people know about it.
Why should he get free spectacles and free suits, Mr. Money?
And on the public record.
When he's telling everybody they're going to have to tighten their belt, when he's telling pensioners you're not getting the 300 quid that keeps you warm in winter, why is he saying, yes, suit please, and spectacles, yes, don't mind if I do?
Well, I don't know if that is actually the case, but transparency is really important in politics. Everything is on the public record, which is right for why we know about that. And as I say, this happens all the time in politics because people are.
He's done more of it than any other MP currently in the House of Commons.
And that's because people were looking to see that he was leader of the opposition. He was about to be Prime Minister. He was laying out an exciting agenda, which he had himself said he wants to work in partnership with sectors and organisations to do so. Well, look, this is all on the public record for people to see, and you can see that's why we're talking about it, because it is there. Well, the simple reason is that people make donations to politicians all the time. Those donations have to be recorded in a transparent way. It has to be on the public record. It is on the public record, which is why you're able to talk about these things.
Mr. Murray, let me just, sorry, I'm not going to make a habit of interjecting, I hope, but let me just stop you right there. He was calling sleaze on Boris Johnson when somebody else paid for his wallpaper. Meanwhile, he's hoovering up all this free stuff, and we only find out about it when somebody examines the register of members' interests, and he's telling people we are going to have to bear the burden for the economic climate we're in. We are going to have to face hardship. Pensioners are going to have to go cold. People are going to get poorer. Do you not accept this is a really bad look?
Well, look, the bottom line is here that the reason you're able to talk about this is because it is on the public record, and people can make their own mind up about whether or not that is an appropriate way. But the government is completely focused on delivering our 5 missions in government to make the whole of the country much, much better. And perhaps, we're 80 days into this government. I know the public are impatient for change. We're all impatient to deliver that change, but we've got to get on with the job and make sure that happens. And that means some tough choices in the beginning to make sure we can fix those foundations to have a brighter future in the end, and that's what change is all about.
Out of 10, how would you rate your first 80 days in government?
Well, I think we've done a lot of really good stuff so far in terms of what we've been trying to do. We've stabilised the economy, which was the #1 thing we had to do and we said we would do. We've lifted the ban on onshore wind in England. We've set up GB Energy and got that into the public processes.
No, you haven't. You don't even know where it's going to be headquartered.
Renationalised. Well, we have. The second reading of the GB Energy Bill went into Parliament before we broke up for the conference recess, and that will get through the parliamentary processes.
Tell me which city is going to be headquartered
as quickly as can. It's a top priority. Well, you'll find that out very imminently in terms of where it will. But the important thing here is it will be headquartered in Scotland, because Scotland is the powerhouse of renewable energy. GB Energy is one of the key missions of this government, because we want to deliver that clean power by 2030. We want to bring down people's bills permanently. We want to have those jobs of the future and that just transition. These are exciting policies that the government are getting on with delivering as a key priority. And of course, all of the other things are a distraction. They are important to talk about. They are transparently in the public domain. But this is about delivering that permanent change, not just sticking past their politics, but permanent change that gives people that brighter future.
I'll tell you a policy that you've implemented that's not a distraction, that is really meaningful and impactful, is the decision to take the winter fuel allowance away from the vast majority of Britain's pensioners. What kind of a reaction have you had from your constituents to this?
Well, it's a balance in terms of what constituents have been saying to me. Some have been saying they didn't need the winter fuel payment, and the principle of means testing it is the right thing. Some pensioners have been saying that the level of means testing at pension credit is too low. Some people have been very keen on championing the triple lock, which is part of the process and one of the trade-offs. That's given pensioners £900 increase in their pension in April this year, and there'll be £460 in April next year, and £1,700 projected over the course of this Parliament. So we've protected that to make sure that pensioner incomes grow with that triple lock. So it's been a whole array of things in terms of what people have been saying. So the principle of means testing has pretty much been accepted.
But we know that a lot of pensioners are going to be pushed into poverty.
Let me just be clear about this.
Go on.
Well, let's just be clear about this. This is a devolved benefit. The Scottish Government have made exactly the same decision to means test at the pension credit level, despite having more money from the inheritance statement that the Chancellor put to the public 6 weeks ago where that decision was made. So in a Scottish context, this is devolved. The Scottish Government have made the same decision despite having more money. What we need to work on now is make sure that most people who are not on pension credit, who are entitled to it, get onto pension credit, and encourage all pensioners to at least get that checked. Because even if you get £1 of pension credit, it does access a passport to all these other
let me ask you this, though.
That's really important.
You've been given £150 million by the UK government to fight poverty in Scotland, a specific war chest of £150 million. That, coincidentally, by the way, is how much this policy is going to cost in Scotland. I presume, feel free to tell me you are going to do this, I presume you're not going to use that whole £150 million to offset all of that policy. But are you going to use some of that £150 million to help the pensioners who are going to be pushed into poverty because of this?
Martin, the Scotland Office has 4 priorities with me as the Scottish Secretary. It's about growth, it's about green, it's about brand Scotland, and it's about poverty. And that number 4 is the key one that we want to try and achieve. I don't have a £150 million war chest. That was a front-page newspaper article that everyone seems to have run with. It was a journalist that made up that figure, not me. My key priority is to get the process of the Scotland Office being a spending department, to get all those structural funds that was in our manifesto together in terms of making sure that the Scotland Office can spend some money that's already been spent in Scotland on that growth, green, brand and poverty, and that's what we'll be targeting on. But I don't have a £150 million war chest, and that was a front-page headline from a journalist who made that figure up.
OK, I mean, so it doesn't sound like you're going to do anything as the Scotland Office to specifically offset this policy for people in Scotland. Tell me this.
I can't do anything. I can't do anything, Martin, with a figure you pluck out of the air that's not true. So that's the answer to that question.
All right, OK, fine. You're not going to do anything. You've spent years telling the SNP government in Scotland, don't cut stuff.
No, that's just not, Martin. I don't accept that. I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that. You're just flippantly
my question was, are you going to do anything to offset this policy?
That you've made up. Well, the 4 priorities we've got in the Scotland Office is growth, green, brand Scotland and anti-poverty, and all of those things come together, and that's the priorities I'll be working on. But
so what are you going to do to offset to help the pensioners who are going to be pushed into poverty? I'm not going to spend
money I don't have.
What are you going to do to help the pensioners in Scotland who have been pushed into poverty because of your government?
Well, the 3 things that we're doing is the triple lock, which guarantees pensioners' income, increases them by either wages, inflation, or indeed prices, and that would be done on the basis of whichever is the higher. So that is about doing it now and into the future, protecting those incomes.
That's ongoing.
GB Energy is about getting bills down permanently and the transfer to renewable power, and that should be done by 2030. So this government is doing a lot to make sure we can fix the fundamentals, so we have a much brighter future for everyone.
You've spent years, Mr Murray, you and many others in your party have spent years telling the SNP government in Scotland, don't cut stuff. You can do better than this. You don't have to cut stuff. You've got the resources. And yet the minute you get into power, you say, we've got to cut stuff. We can't help it. It's the economic climate and it's somebody else's fault.
Well, I think the Scottish Fiscal Commission, which is a Scottish Government body, has been pretty clear that most of the spending decisions and most of the black hole that's been caused in the Scottish finances and public finances are because of decisions that the Scottish Government have made. The IFS have also said that the Scottish Government's fiscal decisions in terms of tax policy has meant it's cost to Scotland more than it has actually raised. These are decisions that happen in Scotland. What we've done as a party and what we want to do as a party in Scotland is we've got rid of one bad government at UK level in terms of the Tories, and we're putting in place that change when we fix the foundations. We've got a second bad government to get rid of in Scotland in 2026, so we show that actually government can work for the people of Scotland. That's what we're determined to do. Yes, of course we've got to show change between now and 2026, but until we fix the foundations, we can't make that change. Everyone will know that if you have damp in your house and all you do is paint over it, it'll come back, it'll look nice for a few months, but it'll come back and come back worse. And of course then you'll have a bigger bill to pay. So if we fix those foundations now, we can create that house of the future that everyone can enjoy and can have stable foundations.
OK, but there are ways to raise big money to help you do that, and you've ruled out many of them in your route to government. You've ruled out raising income tax, raising VAT, raising corporation tax, raising national insurance, squeezing the middle effectively. That doesn't leave you much. What are you going to go for? You're going to go for capital gains tax, presumably, and you're going to go for what, inheritance tax? Both very unpopular with a lot of people. Well, we inherited the worst set of economic circumstances in peacetime.
and we also inherited the highest tax burden on working people in 70 years, and even higher indeed in Scotland, with nurses earn £29,000 a year paying more tax than nurses elsewhere in the UK. So we have to fix those fundamentals. That's why we said that we wouldn't put up income tax, national insurance or VAT because of that 70-year high tax burden. That is the right thing to do.
So what are you going to do?
Corporation tax is at 25%. That's historically the average for where it be. Well, the Chancellor will lay that out on October the 30th, but what she has been clear and what the Prime Minister has been clear is two things. There will be no return to austerity in terms of our public services, and those with the broadest shoulders will carry the can in terms of trying to help us out of this situation. But if we can fix all those things now, in terms of the economic situation, the tax burden on working people, and grow the economy, which is the important thing for us to do, there is no other way out of this mess that this country's in. If we're able to do those things, then there'll be a much brighter future for everyone in this country, and we'll have a much better story to tell come that change we want to deliver.
Doesn't capital gains tax harm your efforts to grow the economy?
Well, look, let's see what the Chancellor lays out on October the 30th, but it's very, very, very clear that we will not increase income tax, will not increase national insurance, will not increase VAT, and will not increase corporation tax on businesses to try and help that economic growth. But there has to be something done with the public finances we've inherited. And I'm sorry to sound like a stuck record, but it's really important. You can't just wish these things away. The reality of the economic situation as you sit in the Treasury or in number 10 is that we've inherited the worst economic and public service finances situation since the Second World War, and on top of that we inherited a £22 billion black hole that we didn't know about. If we do not fix that now, we will never be able to fix the economy, and we'll all be on this managed decline forevermore. We've got 14 years of really bad economic and public policy decisions from the Conservatives to turn around, and we've got 17 years in Scotland of the SNP's bad decisions that the Scottish Fiscal Commission has laid out. So unless we fix that, we can't do anything, Martin, and that's going to be tough. And there's a lot of decisions that we're going to have to make that we didn't want to make or didn't expect to make, and that is but we're being honest with the country and saying that we have to do this, and that we promise you there'll be a better future ahead if we're able to do that now.
OK, in a word, or in a maximum in a sentence if you can, are you satisfied with the way things have gone so far in government, or could they have been better?
I'm not satisfied at all with the inheritance that we've been given. I'm not satisfied at all
with your
with the Conservatives have burnt the house down and run away with the fire extinguishers, and that means it's much more difficult. I'm very pleased with what we've been able to do as a Scotland office so far. We've reset the relationship with the Scottish Government, and that's what the public expected us to do, and that's what we have done. We've been able to intervene in terms of what's been happening at Grangemouth. We've managed to get the Commonwealth Games to Glasgow. We've set up in this process of the anti-poverty task force. We've managed to get the green GB energy bill into the House of Commons. There'll be announcements on that very soon that are incredibly exciting for Scotland. We've done a lot already in just 80 days. I think we've done more in 80 days than the government done in the last 14 years, but it's time for us to move on to a much more positive approach, and that's what we're determined to do this week. OK,
I won't check your punctuation. That may have been one long sentence, but we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Ian Murray, Secretary of State for Scotland, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Liverpool in the Sunday Show this morning.